So I did want to indicate that while most of the discussion tonight or this afternoon will be about how we connect with the public, my discussion actually will be how do large organizations effectively work internally so that they can sync better with the public. When we talk about public issues, I would want to highlight that my colleague Leslie Phillips, who's the Director of Crisis Response and Public Affairs, can address those questions. So our office, the Office of E-Diplomacy, we were actually born of a crisis. 10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago, the East Africa embassy bombings, and later 9/11, caused then Secretary of State Colin Powell to say, how do we know what we know? How does a large organization communicate internally? And that's what we were born to do, to answer the question of a large organization. If somebody knows something and somebody else benefits from needing to know that information, how can they find each other? So really, you think back to when we were born, there was a complete transformation from a Cold War need to know, when we were worried about losing our secrets, to a post-9/11 world when we realized that if we didn't share information, we will be vulnerable to threats from the outside. Let's look at the Haiti earthquake. When the Haiti earthquake hit, roughly 10 days later, the Coast Guard was getting operationally useful data from a 24/7 voluntary ops center manned by students at Fletcher University and using a situational awareness tool developed for election violence monitoring in East Africa. And they were getting SMS text messages directly from Haiti, and those text messages were being translated on a microtasking platform by the Haitian diaspora around the globe, and they were then being mapped on OpenStreetMap. This was done in roughly 10 days by basically people on the outside. How can a large organization like a foreign ministry sync? How can we bridge to this dynamic activity that was happening on the outside? Well, that's where e-diplomacy comes into being. Think of a government as a large car, and think of that fast civil society as this fast-moving engine. How do you sync those two? You need a clutch. You need something that will allow one to transfer its power to the other. What we did is use our own internal tools. So what I'm going to show you now is what you can't see from the public, but there are images from our internal wiki. The day after the Haitian earthquake, this became the go-to place for everybody in the State Department, no matter where they were in the world, to find out what was happening on Haiti, how they can engage, and how they could participate. It was our clutch to be able to sync with this fast-moving creative workforce on the outside. We also learned from that microtasking platform where Creole was being translated to English by this volunteers on the outside, that we could do the same with US citizens. So we have established the Virtual Student Foreign Service microtasking platform, where digital natives can help do diplomacy by helping out our ambassadors and our diplomats around the globe. If you also think, how do we find expertise? So how do we answer that question? How do we know what we know? Where is expertise found? Well, it's not always found to where it's supposed to be. Expertise is often found where you find it. And how do you find that expertise? Well, we have this corridor, which is kind of a LinkedIn meets Facebook meets Twitter, that's behind our firewall. So if I want to find somebody who is a Creole speaker who's in Washington, D.C., I can find them. And who happens to be an economics officer. All those things are possible. We also realized that we needed a way to filter that fire hose of information. So we have developed a platform called The Current, where you can take all your feeds and filter for the terms that you're looking for. Again, turning information into knowledge and action. We also wanted to pull together people like Ushahidi, Frontline SMS, and others who worked on responding to the Haitian disaster and get the lessons learned. That initial Haiti meetup, which was tremendously insightful, led to us launching a quarterly conference on the convergence of technology, foreign policy, and development and diplomacy. If you don't remember anything else, write this down, tech.state.gov, and make sure to sign up for our next event. It's a phenomenal open conference. And finally, seeing this incredible activity that was done by free agents and these tech volunteers for good, we decided to launch a program to pull together these tech for good to solve problems around the globe. We've had over 22 of these tech camps. So if you want to connect, please do so, and I'll look forward to taking your questions in the Q&A session. Thank you.